Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're keeping safe and well. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about the 2021 sitcom We Are Lady Parts and Muslim Representation. So before I get into the video, I want to clarify that I am not a Muslim woman. I'm a black Christian girl from London and I'm 19. So while I was raised in quite a diverse area with a large Muslim community, I am not a Muslim woman and therefore I do not have an authoritative voice on this topic. But I still want to talk about We Are Lady Parts because I love this show, but I don't mean to speak out of turn or overstep. So in this video, I want to discuss what We Are Lady Parts is about, why I think it's a really great show, and sort of contextualize We Are Lady Parts in the state of Muslim representation now. We Are Lady Parts is a sitcom that follows a group of Muslim women in a punk band of the same name. The women are looking for a new lead guitarist to kind of help the band basically break out and reach a larger audience. The main cast are as follows: Taz, who is the band manager; Syra, who is the lead singer, she's a guitarist and she's kind of like the anchor of the band; Bisma, who plays the bass; Aisha, who is the drummer; and Amina, the protagonist. She's a microbiology PhD student and the newest member of We Are Lady Parts. She's kind of reluctantly pulled into the orbit of the band, but develops friendships with the women of We Are Lady Parts, and they basically help her to get over her crippling stage fright. Part 2. Why is We Are Lady Parts so important? So I think that We Are Lady Parts marks a really important moment for Muslim representation, and it represents Muslim women in these really revolutionary ways. Muslim women are often viewed as these kind of veiled, repressed creatures who are forced to submit to a tyrannical Islamic faith and husband. But the show defies these stereotypes that are thrust upon Muslim women and actually spends a lot of time mocking the absurdity of the stereotypes that are thrust onto Muslim women. This is an absolutely great comedy about a woman finding closeness with other women and making some really good punk music with them, and that sounds like a really simple enough plot, but Muslim women are simply not afforded the luxury in our current media landscape to be depicted in such positive and nuanced ways. So at the moment there definitely continues to be a lack of good Muslim representation. In an article that I read for this video by Mariam Khan on Muslim representation, she notes that just 1% of TV industry professionals describe themselves as Muslim, which compares to about 16% who identify as Christian. We are seeing a tiny bit more visibility of Muslim actors. You have Mahershala Ali, who was the first Muslim to win an Oscar a couple of years ago, and he's actually won 2 Oscars now. And you also have Rami Youssef, who created the Hulu show Rami. But good representation is still incredibly rare, which makes We Are Lady Parts so exciting but also so important. So overarchingly, when you do see Muslims starring in TV and film, Muslims are often presented as these kind of malevolent threats, and they're linked to these archaic, backward practices like honour killings, for example. We can see the dire state of Muslim representation through the Riz test, which was influenced by British actor Riz Ahmed's speech to the British Parliament on Muslim representation. So the Riz test is basically used to measure the representation of Muslims in the media. So the test asks whether the characters in a TV show or in a film are identifiably Muslim. I can't speak English. And then the test basically asks, are they a terrorist? Are they irrationally angry, anti-modern? Are they a threat to Western values? Are they a misogynist? Or if it's a female character, are they oppressed by male characters? And if any of the answers are yes, then the test has been failed. So I think that the existence of such a metric is really telling and definitely highlights what a dire state that Muslim representation is in. But the existence of We Are Lady Parts is so great because it completely reimagines the ways that Muslim women and Muslim men are represented, and it gives a really good example of what positive Muslim representation can look like. Part 3. Representations of Muslim women. So I've spoken now a bit about how Muslims in general are depicted quite poorly, if they are depicted at all. But I now want to discuss the representation of Muslim women in We Are Lady Parts. And I want to begin with Amina, our main character. So as I mentioned before, Amina is a microbiology PhD student. She loves playing the guitar, and she's quite nerdy and awkward, and she's a hopeless romantic. So what I really do enjoy about the depiction of our main character is that firstly, she isn't being forced into marriage. Throughout the season, we see her go on quite a few dates because she's looking for that perfect Muslim guy to settle down with. And we see that Amina does put quite a bit of pressure on herself to meet the perfect match. But this pressure does not derive from an oppressive patriarchal father or from her Islamic faith. It's partly internal, and it also partly derives from the group of friends that she has who are fairly uptight and somewhat judgmental, but these are not the women of We Are Lady Parts. And I think that the way that Amina thinks about marriage in the show is really important because it's a much needed break from these regressive Islamophobic depictions of Muslim women as repressed and forced to marry their cousins or something by stern, domineering parents who suffocate their children with their expectations. Amina's mother and father are not pressuring her or forcing her to marry anyone. Amina's parents are quite honestly her cheerleaders. They're caring and they're excited about her being in a punk band. They're so supportive of Amina and want her to do whatever makes her happy. And this is again so refreshing, as Muslim parents are often represented as, being super controlling and not allowing their children to exercise any agency for themselves. Another thing that I really do love about the way in which Amina is represented is that Amina's empowerment and happiness does not derive from her taking off her hijab and rejecting her faith. It comes from listening to Muslim women in her life who affirm her and support her, which is a lovely message to send. This definitely deviates from these narratives in which a Muslim woman has to be saved from white men. Apple TV's 2019 film Hala follows a Pakistani-American teenage girl who feels constrained by her Muslim family's expectations. This film got a great deal of criticism for its depiction of Muslim women. We can just look at the comments from the trailer for the film to just give some insight into the disillusionment felt. One comment for the trailer reads, "This movie is disrespectful and is feeding into the stereotype of us hijabis being oppressed and in need of a saviour. Wearing a hijab isn't about that, it's about so much more." Another comment simply reads, "This doesn't represent Muslim girls at all." And a third comment says, "Ah yes, the oppressed hijabi who is saved by a white American boy from her terrible culture. Why can't it ever just show a successful hijabi woman who has this developed career and doesn't need saving?" So these comments definitely, provide this insight into how lots of Muslim women are cognizant of this, persistent mischaracterization of their experience and are disillusioned with the fact that they are constantly represented as an oppressed Muslim woman. The creator of We Are Lady Parts herself was very aware of the kind of regressive way that Muslim women are represented. In an interview, she said on the topic, "Oftentimes, I haven't been so thrilled with the representation on TV of Muslim women as oppressed and lacking agency, and often lacking joy and humour. But I really do appreciate that in We Are Lady Parts, we see the various different types of Muslim women that there are. Muslim women are not represented as a monolith. We have nerdy and awkward Muslim women, snobbish and judgmental Muslim women who are tough and commanding and brash, Muslim women who are goofy and awkward, Muslim women who make up the cast vary so much. There are Muslim women of different ethnic backgrounds. There are Muslim women who have their own, distinctive personality traits, like I mentioned. But there's also kind of more minor ways in which the multiplicity of Muslim women are shown. So some Muslim women, for example, choose to wear hijabs on the show, and they all tie their headscarves differently and wear lots of different colours. Another thing that I would also like to know is that Muslim women in We Are Lady Parts are always so fashionable and stylish. Oftentimes, the modesty of Muslim women is seen as oppressive and is seen as at odds with the kind of values of freedom and liberty, which apparently only Western societies have. We see this, in the fact that the French Senate have voted to outlaw the headscarf for minors in public. and that vote was carried out in the spring of 2021. Also recently in Switzerland, there's been a vote which will ban the wearing of the burqa and niqab in public places. And videos that were on the Swiss government's website that argued for the ban on the veil, spoke of the veil as something that is a symbol of oppression and something that is unsuitable for a progressive society. And this clearly highlights, right, how deeply entrenched these patronizing and Islamophobic rhetoric is. You have shows like Elite, where the Muslim character Nadia, her hijab and her modest style of dress are depicted as something that constrain her freedom. And I promise that I didn't just read one article for this video, but I think that Mariam Khan's article here on Muslim representation is quite useful again. Mariam Khan says, one persistent trope is that of empowerment coming solely from distancing oneself from your religion, with a hijab removal scene now a shorthand gesture in film and TV to show a Muslim woman's rejection of faith and adoption of Western freedoms. Netflix Spanish teen drama Elite uses this trope. In a key scene, we see one of the show's leads, Nadia, walk into a club having removed her headscarf before going on to drink alcohol and have sex with a white classmate. But here, in We Are Lady Parts, we see that clothing and the hijab is not oppressive. Muslim women exercise agency and dress how they please, which again deviates from these regressive narratives of Muslim women being meek and oppressed. Part 4. Representations of Muslim Asian men. So Asian men are often feminized and desexualized in order to present them as undesirable in the media. Think Raj from The Big Bang Theory. He's presented as lacking the traits of traditional masculinity and is therefore presented as worthy of derision, rather than being a potential love interest. But in We Are Lady Parts, our main character, Amina, repeatedly swoons after the South Asian men around her, and we see that Asian men are depicted as love interests. Particularly with the intersection of Asianness and Muslim identity, Asian men are often depicted as terrorists and controlling and oppressing their Muslim wives, or as sexual predators, oftentimes in the British media. The case of grooming gangs in the UK, in which some British Pakistani men preyed on and assaulted some white British girls, but also Asian girls, has definitely resulted in Asian Muslim men being constructed in the British imagination as either terrorists or as sexual predators. So the positive depiction of Asian men is definitely great, as it's a welcome deviation from the fear-mongering tactics often used by British tabloids, which make crude generalizations about Asian Muslim men and present them as these kind of deviant criminals. Amina and her love interest Ahsan have lovely chemistry, and throughout the show there are these really sweet scenes of Amina daydreaming about him, like the one that I showed at the beginning of this part. And this display of an Asian Muslim couple is again really rare, but so lovely to see. Part 5. Key themes. Within 5 minutes of We Are Lady Parts, Syra, the anchor of the band and lead guitarist and singer, is asked why she is still pursuing fame. And Syra replies that it isn't about fame, but it's about representation. It's about being heard. These powerful words are the writers signaling to us the importance of these themes of authenticity, representation, and visibility. The writers are making it clear to us how vital it is for Muslim women to create images that reflect their authentic selves. I really do appreciate how cleverly this message is conveyed. These women's existences are, to an extent, political. They are navigating a world permeated by Islamophobia and racism, and navigating these hybrid identities. But the show is expertly able to interweave the politics of navigating life as a British Muslim woman without talking down to the audience or spoon-feeding the audience. The show is set in London, in the UK, where there continue to be big issues with Islamophobia. From the rise in Islamophobic hate crimes following terror attacks in the late 2010s to fringe political movements like the English Defence League, which have derided Islam as a backward religion and argue that Muslims are invading the UK and stripping the country of its success and national identity. our Prime Minister Boris Johnson called Muslim women in burqas letterboxes and bank robbers and spoke of Muslims being centuries behind. The biggest tabloids in the country are rife with false information, are sensationalist in nature, and often use Islamophobic rhetoric. We can see these fear-mongering tactics through a headline that reads, 1 in 5 British Muslims have sympathy for jihads. Another headline reads that millions are eating halal food without knowing it. Oh my god, the scandal. This headline from another trash newspaper, the Daily Mail, claims that jihadis are free to roam in the UK. And I don't want to turn this section of the video into dragging UK newspapers for being racist, but these newspapers have circulations in the millions. They are the most widely read newspapers in the country, which makes their portrayal of Muslims even more alarming. We also see Islamophobia in the UK through the vote to leave the European Union. In 2016, there was a referendum, and the British public basically chose whether or not we would leave the European Union, and the British public voted to leave. Many people who chose to leave the European Union were very much so motivated by this idea of preventing Muslims and other foreigners from stealing jobs and stealing benefits. I don't know how immigrants can do both, but okay. So I say all of this to say that it is undeniable that the women that who are in We Are Lady Parts and the world that they are navigating is one that is permeated by Islamophobia and xenophobia. So I really do appreciate how in this very hostile environment, We Are Lady Parts emphasizes this theme of visibility and representation, authenticity, and demonstrates that it's so important, in light of so much Islamophobia and racism, to control how you are presented. But also, there is this continued acknowledgement and understanding of these continuing social issues, but we aren't overwhelmed by injustice. The politically charged climate is acknowledged, but it doesn't suffocate our protagonists. This theme of visibility, authenticity, and representation is also shown through the music, as after all, this is a show about a punk band. You have songs like Voldemort Under My Headscarf, which touches really excellently on this fear that persists around Muslim women and the veil, and the way that the veil has become this object of fixation and fear in the Western gaze. And I really do appreciate this clever satirical approach to this pressing issue. We're living in a time where France, which is seen as a very progressive nation, has had a ban on niqabs and burqas in public for 10 years now. We're living in a time where we continue to see inflammatory articles claiming that hijabs sexualize young girls and are oppressive. So this song, Voldemort Under My Headscarf, really greatly captures this preoccupation with the choices that Muslim women make, but without bringing down the mood or being preachy. This tongue-in-cheek approach is also shown in the song Ain't Nobody Gonna Wanna Kill My Sister But Me. This song addresses and satirizes these stereotypes that Muslim women feel the burden of their gender so intensely and are constantly threatened by the violence of Muslim men. And I really do appreciate that the show demonstrates how Muslim women are using music as a medium, not only because it's their passion, but also as an avenue to correct these false images and to speak their truth in a very hostile and Islamophobic world. Part 6. Queer representation. The drummer of the band, Aisha, is a queer Muslim woman, but we are not bombarded with the trauma that she has faced. Aisha is not killed by her Muslim parents because of their shame about her sexuality, nor is she abandoned by her parents. In T Noir's video on Does the Media Have an Obsession with Queer Pain, T makes a number of really excellent points and discusses how stories of queer people often center their suffering. So the fact that Aisha's bandmates are supportive of her and her sexuality is great because it deviates from these regressive narratives which hyper-focus on queer pain. Aisha is asked in an interview if she wants to talk about being a queer Muslim woman, and she says she doesn't want to get into it. So this scene suggests that perhaps coming out was a bit tricky for her, but I like how Aisha exercises agency and decides that that's something that she just doesn't want to be public. which again is the writers signalling to us the importance of Muslim women controlling how they're depicted and portrayed. Part 7, the end. So if you made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. So in this video, I spoke a lot about how I really enjoyed We Are Lady Parts and its depiction of Muslim women. I spent a lot of time discussing how the representation of Muslim women in We Are Lady Parts departs from regressive stereotypes of Muslim women being oppressed. So if you enjoyed the video, please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe and share this with others. And thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.